Thank you for joining us today. My name is Elizabeth Matthews. I am the Waiver Support Coordinator Liaison at the state office. Many of you have communicated with me in the past, so thank you for joining. Thank you for being a part of it today. We are with the Florida Sand Breaking Barriers Training Academy today, and we have three wonderful presenters who will introduce themselves and their backgrounds. But I just wanted to make sure that we talk about how this training is provided for continuing education credit for our support coordinators. So if you are joining today for credit, please make sure that you stay through the end of the call, that you participate. We have a lot of interaction for today. There will be questions posed to you, so please become familiar with your webinar controls so that you can communicate with us via chat box. And then at the end of the call, like we normally do, I will provide you with information so you can take your assessment and earn that credit for joining today. This is an hour long, so we will be done right around 11 o'clock. If there are questions or comments that we are not able to get to during the hour, our trainers will review those questions and reach out to you if there's something that they can help you with. So throughout the presentation, if something pops into your head, if you want to send in a message, go ahead and do so. We will review them as much as we can live, but if not live, we will try to reach out to you after the fact. So without further ado, I am going to pass this over to Miss Amanda Baker, and she will introduce her team and start the presentation. So Amanda.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to Learning Along the Way, Encouraging Self-Advocacy in Community Settings, a presentation of the Breaking Barriers Training Academy, which is a new endeavor of Florida Self-Advocates Network, or Florida SAND for short, and we are very excited to be with you today. Next slide, please. My name is Amanda Baker. I'm the Vice President of Florida SAND, as well as the Vice Chair of the Florida Developmental Disability Council and a Certified Work Incentives Planning Practitioner. I have with me today Arizona Jenkins, who is a Florida SAND board member and the founder of New Horizons Support Group in Tampa. He also does a lot of work with Florida Center for Inclusive Communities at University of South Florida in Tampa. We also have Laura Minatello. She's the Florida Self-Advocacy Central Coordinator. That is our online presence for Florida SAND. She also has a degree in psychology from University of Central Florida, and she does a lot of work with us. She's also a Florida SAND Fellow. We are all waiver recipients, and we all have support coordinators. We are so very excited to be sharing this knowledge with you from our point of view, and we thank you again for the opportunity. Next slide, please. Today, we want to share three objectives with you. First, we want to just reinforce the idea that clients with all types of abilities can take parts in choices about their lives. Secondly, we want to provide you with some advice and hacks for encouraging self-advocacy in your everyday interactions with your clients that will enhance your ability to write meaningful support plans. And lastly, we'll leave you with some ideas and tips for encouraging self-determination and self-advocacy when you're out in the community. Now, we know that you are not always the one that is out in the community with your client. We understand that there are direct support professionals out there that do the one-on-one in the community a lot of times. But as a support coordinator, we hope that you will take this information and pass it along to those direct support professionals. and it will be beneficial for everyone. Also, we hope that as we go along and we ask for questions and comments, that you'll put them in the question box. Please know that we will get to them throughout the presentation if we don't stop right away, because we will keep going. Next slide, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Evan Rodriguez, and today we're going to be talking about self-determination. Self-determination is defined as having inclusive and self-determination about your life. Self-advocacy is beginning defined as a speaking up when it comes to issues and decisions that are important in your life or others with disabilities. Next slide, please.
In section 1, we will be discussing encouraging self-advocacy day-to-day and in support planning. Self-determination and self-advocacy transcend all aspects of life, and encouragement of these things should be part of daily activities as well as your support planning. Our examples are going to address people and clients with all types of abilities. And I like to share a story when I talk about self-advocacy. It doesn't always have to be a big thing that you work on with someone. It can start with little choices that have big impacts. I used to live next to a family who had a son who was on the autism spectrum, and all he ate were potato chips and chicken tenders. And I noticed that he didn't speak. He just pointed to potato chips when he wanted them, and his parents would hand them to him. Well, when I started going over there, I would pick 2 bags of potato chips of different kinds, and I would let him choose what he wanted, and he would point to what he wanted, and he seemed to enjoy being able to make that choice, and I was able to forge a relationship with him. And long story short, with a lot of support and everything, he started talking, and now he's fully mainstreamed. He started high school. You wouldn't even know he's on the spectrum unless you knew before, but it all started with very small choices, and the parents realized that he didn't really have a reason to speak until they gave him one. So it's just really important to know that those little choices make big impacts. Next slide, please. Integration with support planning. As much as possible, we have crafted these guidelines to save you time in the long haul. Conversation, observation, and brief note taking along the way will make annual support planning easier, more substantive, and more reflective of your client's development and changes. Support plans are a living, breathing document. Um, and you can change them at any time. It's an ongoing process that involves getting to know a client throughout the year so that your process is informed by observation and notes that you'll take throughout. So it's important to realize that you don't just save all of the changes for that once a year annual meeting, that you're making the changes and the notes as you go. And if you're not making at least 3 changes throughout a year, you might want to explore how you can improve the process. Um, they can be changed whenever you need. Next slide, please.
Good morning, everyone. As Amanda alluded to, our goal with this training, and particularly the engagement cycle that you see before you on the screen, is to save you time, but also allow you to provide more meaningful feedback and gain it too. As we go through these, it may be helpful to think about what you yourself would want if somebody were helping you make a 5-year plan for your life, and then ask those types of questions. First and foremost, when it comes to engagement, you want to take the time to get to know your client. You can do this the same way you would with most anybody else. Just ask them questions, tell them about yourself, look for those common points of connection and interest. We have a few ideas for you on the conversation starter handout to refer to, but generally sports, television shows, favorite people, those are good places to start. Additionally, you want to be sure that you have time alone with your client, if at all possible. We know that sometimes that's difficult, but as self-determination is the goal, you want to eliminate any outside influences as often as you can. When you're asking questions, you want to make sure that you're providing feedback for your clients as well as getting it, and make sure that they understand your job as well as you understanding their needs, and if you're meeting those or not. So you want to make sure your questions are two-way street. Next slide, please. You'll notice the addition of the red arrow, and that's just simply to remind you that engaging and listening and observation go hand in hand. Observation naturally comes down to nonverbal cues, which can be helpful, particularly when it comes to less verbal or nonverbal clients. For instance, I know a young man on the spectrum who is not very verbal. However, if you got to know Jordan, you would quickly see that more than anything else, he loves Disney characters, especially Woody and Buzz. And a lot of times he'll wear these characters on his clothing or draw them. And after you've spent a little bit of time with him, or a DSP has spent a little bit of time with him, because again, we know that you're not always the people in the community with your client, you could then use the love of these characters to draw him out, and he'd be more willing to answer questions about himself. Next slide, please. When it comes to recording, we just really wanted to remind you to be sure that you are recording it in a consistent manner, again, as this saves you time and allows you to offer more meaningful feedback for your clients. And we would love if you put in the question box the methods that you use to record. Next slide, please. This cycle is not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process, as I'm sure we all know. And once again, we know that you are not often the people involved in the day-to-day care of your clients, but we just want to be sure that you and your DSPs are in as much contact as possible. And say a DSP, and are also using this cycle on the daily basis. Say a DSP has a client who likes to watch TV. Well, at first it may be a favorite show that they gravitate towards, but over time you could use these observations and the information you gather to possibly move them towards, say, a disability-related documentary. Or if you have a client that struggles with social skills but loves cars, you might suggest that they go to a car show with a friend and use their interest of cars to draw them out and work on the things that they need more help with. These aren't perfect examples, and we're not going to be able to cover everything, but they're just to give you an idea. And again, on the handout, we have other examples, and we would be happy to discuss any further examples as well. So ask us, you feel free to ask us your questions. Next slide, please.
This is technology where we are assessments. They just want no less communication. That is for client who weak is difficult to understand. Next slide. Familiarizing yourself with assistive technologies specific to clients' communication challenges, review assessing assessment or arrange assessment beyond schools systems developed. Now, all that was that so you can go to school and your client is young, you want to start out early. You want to go to schools to find out what they have. If you can't get there, you can get some what we have, or whatever else you might use. Also, you can go to our website, the www.flsaying.org and network and Warzane network .org as well. Next slide.
Next, we have for you some strategies that would most be helpful with nonverbal or less communicative clients. The first just goes back to, again, knowing your client and using the information you gathered to best help them. As Arizona mentioned, you want to check for assessments that have been conducted and know where to send a client if they don't have those assessments. VR and the school system are two great places. Next, and most importantly, probably, is that you want to reduce distractions if at all possible, as this helps you to better understand the client and them to better understand you, as well as to enhance their comfort level. For a client that struggles with eye contact, a good tip may be to have them practice looking at you through a mirror. So set up a mirror and stand behind them and allow them to view you through the mirror instead of straight on, as this could make it less intimidating to try and develop these skills. You want to ensure they know their confidentiality and HIPAA rights, and again, further establish their trust and comfort level. Additionally, for less verbal clients, something that seems to be really helpful is the use of graphics or visual aids. This could be a picture or letterboard. It could be a graphic organizer where a DSP has a visual description of the client's day that the client could then use and point to the activities that they would like to engage in. It could be something on the client's wrist that has each color of a bracelet denotes a choice in activity or a answer to a question. There are really a number of ways to do this, both high tech and low. And again, some of the handouts we have can better direct you to some of those resources. Next slide, please. You want to be sure to keep your questions concrete. Who and what tend to be easier questions to answer than when and why, because they have specific and measurable answers. If you ask somebody why they did something, even if they know, they may not be able to articulate it, especially those with communication challenges. You want to try when at all possible to avoid yes or no questions, as this doesn't allow the client to give you more information and tell you about themselves. You want to explain the reason for your questions. This, I think, just comes down to humanity. If you think about it, it's always easier to do or answer something when you understand the reason that someone's asking. You want to take it slow and use patience, but at the same time, you want to avoid using patronizing language. So you want to have it simple enough that you're sure the client understands, but you want to presume confidence in the fact that they do understand, even if they can't articulate it. And then if you see that there's problems, you want to work backwards. And lastly, you want to rely on those observations and those nonverbal cues that we talked about earlier in the presentation. Next slide.
Being understood should be the goal when applying communication and participation. Now, that means that you want to get your point across. You want to do whatever you need to do to get your point across. Encourage the client to put themselves in their communication partner's shoes. That means they have the client think about how they feel. And if they can understand you, will they feel embarrassed because they can't understand you? Or will they feel that they can't and they don't want to do it? Or do they really want to help? Or you have to put yourself in their own shoes and their shoes. Help your client develop systems and trust coming that works for them. Now, let's say you want to go to the grocery store and you want a soda. And like me, I have a problem sometimes saying what kind of soda I want. They can't understand what I want. So when I say I want advice, I will point and say the S one. S. If I want echo, I will point and say I want C for so we help them understand you better. The point is to get your point across. Next slide, please. Um, because the listener, you are willing to repeat yourself, and you will understand you. Then keep talking and deep breaths and repeat. That means that you want to repeat yourself over and over again until they get what you're saying. If you have to take a deep breath and follow, if the client is drooling, they can do some exercises like swallow and take a deep breath and begin again. And keep saying it until they get the point. And we need to find a quiet box if possible. If you're in a quiet box, then they can hear better. Sometimes speaking more slowly and loudly helps. Like I'm doing right now. You know, when you're speaking face to face, they can read your lips or eye contact. But when you're on the computer, you want to speak loudly and slowly, like I'm doing right now. Next slide, please. As the listen to be patient with the client using an AT device. So if the client is using a device like a whiteboard or a dialogue box, whatever they use to communicate, ask the person to be patient with that. It'll take a long time to get it done. Okay? And it could eye contact. Sometimes they understand more quickly if they're looking in your eyes. So if you're looking in my eyes, you know what I'm saying. Eye contact. If they're in a wheelchair, you want to sit down. Don't stand over them. And give them respect, and they know that you're listening. And then it goes ahead of time. If and when it's okay for you to step in and help add them the client. So now with that one is you did all the other stuff and they still can't understand what the client is talking about. Then you want to ask the client if it's okay if you go ahead and say what they're trying to get the point across, whatever they're trying to say to the listener. But always ask the client first is the person of respect. Next slide, please.
In section 2, we'll talk about encouraging self-advocacy in community settings. We're going to talk about common concerns that self-advocates have, guidelines for everyday context, and policy advocacy contexts. Again, we know that all of this information may not apply to you directly at all times. Sometimes it is the direct service provider who is with the client and the community, but we hope that you pass some of this information along and that it is helpful to you. Next slide, please. Common concerns of self-advocates. Self-advocates are concerned about being ignored and not treated like a person, um, being treated like a child. A lot of times we're talked down to or talked to in a baby type of voice. Um, People speaking to the caregiver about them instead of them, and the caregiver not addressing this. This happens frequently. When I'm at the doctor's office, sometimes they'll talk to the person that I'm with and ask questions about me without asking me, and then the caregiver knows to step in and say something. In my case, it's really important to do this. Caregivers not allowing or assisting them with speaking or acting for themselves, and knowing how to ask for help or politely declining help, and knowing that both of those things are acceptable. Next slide, please. Common concerns of waiver support coordinators and direct service professionals. To help us with this, we want to hear from you. If you could put in the question box your general concerns regarding serving a client in community settings and your concerns relating to facilitating meaningful advocacy experiences. Next slide, please.
As Amanda alluded to, a huge concern when out in the community is people often not addressing a person with a disability and addressing those with them instead. She shared her experiences. I've had those experiences as well. I once had a I was shoe shopping and I was alone, and the salesperson asked the person behind me, who was not even with me, what my shoe size was. And so it's really important to encourage clients to speak up for themselves, and you may have to teach them how to do this. A good time to do this is in the car between activities. If you have a group, just go through a situation, say in a restaurant, and pose questions to them about how they would handle if a waiter how they would handle ordering their food if a waiter didn't address them, and just act it out and play the part of say the waiter, and tell them, to speak up for themselves, and then say, I can answer that, or I would like, and interrupt it. But more so, as an ally, you or the person out in the community with the client may have to actually be the ones to do so. So redirecting a person when a question is asked to you, why don't you ask her, or he can answer that, is a good way to do so. And it's a great way to be an ally to your clients and those you're working with. Next slide, please. Another big area of concern is how to ask for or decline help. Again, with a less verbal client, this may be something that you have to role play. As a shorter person and a person in a chair, it's something that I encounter a lot. Say I'm in a supermarket and I can't reach something and I have to ask for help. But as a more verbal person, I can obviously address that. A less verbal client maybe have to actually be taught to say things like, would you help me with, or how to approach a store employee. But also declining help. A lot of times, because I look far younger than I am just naturally helped along the way in ways that I don't need, and my autonomy isn't respected a lot. It's something I've encountered out in the community, and again, I can say, don't help me, or please don't help me with that. But it's important for less verbal clients that you teach them to speak clearly and state what they need and what they don't need, and that they have the right to do so. You want to do it kindly, but you want to be firm. Next slide, please. A few more settings where clients may need help are healthcare. Amanda touched on this a little bit. It's typical that healthcare professionals often will address others and not the person with a disability. And the Florida Center for Inclusive Communities has a great tool in their healthcare passport, which is a document that a client and a DSP or WSC can fill out with them, giving their basic information to their healthcare providers and hopefully helping to alleviate a situation where their wishes aren't respected. We already talked about shopping a little bit. With recreation, it's important to remember to think outside the box. We know that you have guidelines as far as what's justifiable and billable, but we want you to remember that almost everything can be a self-advocacy opportunity or an opportunity to learn. Going to a concert can be used to teach a client how to budget. Going to the beach can be a great way to interact with others. So whenever possible, we just want you to think outside the box. Interacting with strangers is again something that may need some role playing. A lot of times clients aren't sure what's appropriate and what's not. And this can be something that, again, you do with a group between activities. Just play a friendly stranger and talk to them about what you do. Do you wave? Do you hug people? And go through the do's and don'ts. Another area where it's great to be an ally is in relationships. We've already talked about a little bit about the fact that it's important to get your clients alone whenever possible and ask them questions in a setting where others aren't around. And this is a big reason why. I think just on a human level, it's easy to be influenced by others in our lives sometimes, but that's heightened when you have a disability, and sometimes you just don't want to disappoint, or you aren't sure, or the people in your life are telling you you need to do this or you don't need to do this, and you're more susceptible to, a lot of the time, to listen to those influences, not because of the disability, but sometimes honestly because of some of the power dynamics. So it's important to be the best ally to clients possible and make sure that their self-determination needs are being met. Next slide, please.
Okay, now this is the part where we get to hear from you what you learned so far. So you have any questions or comments about what you learned so far, and I will be the one addressing them. So you can put it in the chat box and we can communicate right now. And then, so we're going to be waiting. So while we're waiting on the questions, we hope that you will learn a lot today. So we're going to go to the next slide, and then we'll go back to the question. Next slide.
Next, we're going to talk about self-advocacy in some policy context. We are really, really lucky to have in the state of Florida the largest conference in the disability conference in the nation, in the Family Cafe. I'm sure many of you have been, and typically providers and parents are encouraged to go, which is great. The cafe has a lot of resources for all involved in the disability community. But there are a lot of self-advocacy resources at the cafe that a lot of times people don't know to take advantage of. There's a self-advocacy track in their workshops, and there's other instances to connect with self-advocates. There's even social opportunities. There are sports opportunities. There's a lot of things that would be of interest to self-advocates and self-advocates alone. And we want to be sure to encourage other self-advocates and for you to encourage your clients to go to cafe every year or whenever possible. Next, the Family Care Council is in much the same situation, in that a lot of the members are parents or family members, which is a part of the council membership for sure, and a needed aspect. But there are also places on the Family Care Councils for self-advocates, and a lot of times the self-advocate voice on the councils isn't as present, and we believe that, as in all self-advocacy, that self-advocate voice makes it better. So again, just when you have the opportunity, encourage your clients and any self-advocate you know to attend council meetings or learn what the Family Care Council is about.
Next slide.
No, we're on the same slide. I'm about to talk about partners and policies making, which is another great advocacy opportunity for self-advocates. It's a program offered by the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council that teaches parents, family members, and self-advocates about policy affecting people with disabilities and how to advocate for themselves. They actually take on an advocacy project. They learn how to speak at committee hearings and everything. And a lot of times this program is marketed to family members and not as many self-advocates. This was a program I went through at the suggestion of my support coordinator, and now I do advocacy work all over the state and even nationally sometimes. So it's a really important resource. And also, while I'm talking about the Florida Developmental Disability Council, they have seats available for self-advocates as well. And self-advocates are encouraged to apply when there are openings, and it's a great experience. And now we're on the number 4, the next slide, statewide advocacy with other groups. We join forces together as Florida Stand. We have groups throughout Florida, but we also band together with the family care councils, the Centers for Independent Living, local ARCs, for policy campaigns and on different issues, because there's power in numbers, and we love working together to really make effective change, systems change.
Number 5 is grassroots advocacy projects. That is attending local city council meetings, groups, as they making phone calls to legislators using gifts and letters, messages, and then the visit also says to join and start an advocacy group. So when you start an advocacy group or grassroots, that's what we have to do on the fight. We have to start making phone calls, making agendas. You're teaching the client how to run a meeting. You are also giving them, educating them on how to talk to the legislators when they have an issue that pertains to what they are fighting for. And you can help them with all that by doing all that. And then the next slide, please. This is the map of all of our local groups under Florida Dance. So wherever you're located at, you can look on the map and find a group, advocacy group. Mine is in Tampa, Florida, North Carolina support group for people with disabilities. You can also go on the website floridasands.org or flsands.org. flsands.org. And the Florida Self-Advocacy Network.org. And you can find the local groups in your area. And we want to encourage you to do so. You can be a part of the group. Okay? It's a lot of fun, a lot of work, and we love to do it. That's right.
As Amanda alluded to in the beginning, the Breaking Barriers Training Academy is a brand new venture of Florida Stand, and we're very, very excited about it. We offer a number of trainings on everything from self-advocacy to parents, and this one, which we are so excited to deliver to you today, as well as customized training. So if there's something that we didn't touch on, or a group that we would that would benefit from our presentations, please let us know. And again, contact us at flsan.org. Our contact information is also in your handouts, and we would be happy to come and present training anytime. Next slide.
Now, again, we are adding you guys to put the questions in the chat box. The reason I want to give you guys enough time to type in the chat box. So we will be waiting for your answers and questions. So, do we have any comments in the chat box?
Yes, we have some questions, Arizona. And I will say there are some questions for you about clients who have speech challenges, but I also wanted to say there are quite a few questions about situations with parents and other caregivers conflicting with what the support you're providing. And I will say that we talked about this. By the way, I'm sorry, I'm Kelly Munn, and I am a provider, a technical assistance provider to these lovely self-advocates that are doing this presentation. And we knew there'd be questions about parents and caregivers, and we decided ahead of time that that was a whole separate training. But I will throw that out if one of you guys want to answer it, maybe Laura or Amanda, since I've got other questions for Arizona. If you want to, if there's something you could say briefly on that.
Well, this is Amanda, and I just want to say there's no quick answer for that, and there's no one answer that fits everyone. Just never lose sight of the fact that you're there for the client, and you're there to help them realize what they want and what they need. So if that's in conflict with the parent or the caregiver, then a conversation needs to happen, and we can even help and provide resources. And I just want to say that if you guys have specific situations that you want us to answer questions about, please email us at contact@flsan.org. We've already talked about, we know we're not going to be able to answer the questions all that you have, and we're really passionate about this because we've lived through it, and I've had the same issues with my parents and stuff, so we've been there, and we'll be happy to help in any way that we can.
That would be that was going to be my suggestion too. I think that it's better to help on a case-by-case basis, which we are all more than happy to do. So.
Okay. Okay, thank you, ladies. So Arizona, I'm gonna put two questions in one here for you. Joy says, sometimes people who have a hard time being understood give up early. So she wants to know what's the best thing to say when this happens. And then another questioner asked, how many times is too many to say, please repeat yourself?
Okay. The first question, when they give up, you want to encourage them by saying it's okay. If they get frustrated, they can take a deep breath and begin again. And they tell them it's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with the person who's trying to listen. It's just a bad that we have to overcome. We're going to overcome together. We're going to walk through this together. We're going to figure this out together. I'm here with you, you here with me, and we're going to walk it together. And you have to be patient with the person who can't hear you or can't understand you. You can't give up. We here for then teaching people you can't give up, because if you give up, how are you going to teach someone else? How are you going to be able to get your work? Because people are watching you every day. They're watching you to see how you handle yourself. So this is what you got to believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. And never say it again. Believe in yourself. That's where it comes from. Okay? And the other question was, can you please again, Kelly, please?
Yes, it was, I looked at the question more clearly and there was more to it. How many times, at what point, how many times is too many times to, or is there too many times to ask the question or to repeat themselves? And if they're still not connecting and understanding, is there something else you can do? If they've repeated multiple times and they're still not understanding.
If you go back to my other slides, where that when you done all the eye contact and all that, and when you had done the quiet spots, and they can't undo anything. Repeat as many times as you need to. The person that's willing to stand there and listen to you to repeat it, that means it must be very important that they get it. So if they're willing to stand there and listen, you should be willing to repeat it as many times as possible. If you can't repeat it, then this is when you, as the client, may I go ahead and tell them what you said. You always want to get permissions. That's what it's about. Getting the point across. Next person.
So, Laura is asking, she says she's worked for years in this field, but there needs to be more education with residential providers on allowing individuals to speak for themselves regardless of their communication level. Any suggestion for residential training resources?
Well,
That is a great question. And I think that that's something that we should actually speak about. So I'm glad that was suggested because I agree.
Yes, we agree with you.
Yeah, so you're teaching us some things too, is what you need, and that's what we want too. So if anybody else has any other suggestions, again, please get in touch with us. But similar to what Amanda said is with the parents, I would just say really quickly, maybe that's the point in time where you have a conversation with a particular person in that residential setting, and just level with them and say, you know, essentially that you know, your job is to support the client and this is getting in the way of that. But I definitely think that that's something that we should offer, and I will also follow up with that particular person and others and look for more resources. I don't have any particular off at the top of my head. Do you, Amanda?
No, but I know that this is a problem, and I've had to talk to people and really counsel them on how to handle specific situations. So I see this being a training of ours in the future.
Absolutely, I agree.
Well, one thing you can do, you can always contact us. That's what we do. We are breaking barriers, because we break all the barriers that contain to people with feelings. And then when we hear that you be polite to the parent, whoever it is, because there is their child. So they want the best for their child. So we are here to educate them as well. So it has to be how do you want this to be communicated if you are in their shoes? Always put yourself in their shoes. Think outside the box, and you'll be fine. Next question.
There's a question. Elizabeth, do we have time for more, or how are we doing on time?
You guys are doing great on time. I'd say maybe just another 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay. So, Laura, there's a question here about, I know you worked on I know all three of you worked on the handouts, but you kind of curated them and did some research. There's a question here from Catherine that says, do you encourage picture drawing for nonverbal clients?
Yes, absolutely. Depending, of course, on the client's interest. The young man that I referenced earlier on the spectrum with, you know, the Toy Story interest is actually a great artist. And not that you have to be a great artist to draw, or not that you know, or the DSP has to, that's the level of talent isn't the point, but it may absolutely be easier to communicate in a non-written, you know, non-verbal form, and also to the picture drawing too. Sometimes typing on a computer is easier, or hand gestures, but absolutely that's a great tool. And I would just say that that goes back to knowing a particular client. But yes, if you believe that that would work or is something to try, absolutely.
You can also do some exercises. You can blink it like if you can't understand. Tell them to blink their eyes one time for yes, or blink their eyes 2 times for no. You didn't have to do whatever you have to do. It is part of life. But we want to make encourage you to do whatever you need to do for that client. Next time, next question.
I think in light of time, I won't ask any more questions, but I just want to affirm those of you who put comments on here and express concerns about your staff needing training like this, and concerns you have about this, having these skills or having the initiative to do some of these things. And Elizabeth answered a question in the question box that these materials are available for you to share with your staff. And then, as Laura indicated in our training opportunities slide, that Breaking Barriers is available to work with you as well on that. But there were lots of good comments, lots of affirmation for the team that I will be happy to share with them when we're finished today.
Any more questions?
I think that's all, Elizabeth.
Okay, so any closing remarks from the Breaking Barriers team?
I just wanted to thank each and every one of you guys for taking the time to come to this place. And we hope that what you learned today, it will encourage you to do more for your clients and help the clients become more independent. That's what we're here for. We're here to be independent living skills. So God bless you all and for your time.
This is Amanda. I just want to say thank you for your service to our population. We know that you have such a hard job, and sometimes you are the only voice for your clients. So it's up to you to make sure that their wants and needs are met. And we know that. We know that the things that we've discussed today aren't always going to be easy, but we just thank you for everything that you do, and we're here to help in any way that we can. And thank you for letting us present today.
Absolutely. Just to echo my fellow panelists, thank you guys for your time and attention. And as Amanda said, we know that, some of these suggestions and things that we're asking are not easy to implement. And that goes back to the why we really want to help in any way we can. So if you have specific questions or there are more specifics we didn't cover, please reach out to us. We're very, very serious about that. We want to help in any way we can, and we're just so thankful for everything that you do.
And again, we want to innovate the FLC and the orgs, FLC and network, the org. You can contact us through that. And we also have a Florida Stand Facebook page. So you can find us on all of those avenues. So please reach out. God bless you all.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Amanda, Laura, and Arizona. The presentation was absolutely wonderful. Thank you to all of our sport coordinators who joined today. So for those of you who are here for credit, I will go ahead and get that information to you and talk you through how that's going to work. Bear with me. So just like our normal monthly situation, we have an assessment. So we will have that available to you starting about now, and you have until 5 o'clock this evening to take that assessment. I will also put the link in our chat box. So that will be there in just a moment once I get my boxes open again. And it's the same criteria as before. So you have to make a 75% or higher. If you get that score, you will have 1.5 credits. Your certificate will be emailed to you. Make sure you save that for your records. And if you unfortunately do not get 75% or higher, that will be no credit and you do not have the opportunity to take the assessment again. If you cannot take the test today between the hours of 11 and 5, you miss the opportunity to take the test. At 5 o'clock, it closes and it does not reopen. So please devote a little bit of time to take this assessment. You are welcome to use the resources that we provided at the beginning and use those while you take the test. It is okay to use those resources. I want everyone to do well and get the credit that they receive. So if there are no other questions for the self-advocates, if there are no other questions for APD, you guys, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Depending on where you are in Florida, hopefully you'll have some nice weather. And if you run into trouble with the assessment today, feel free to email me and I'll do my best to get to you quickly because I know about the time frame. So I'll leave this up for just a few more minutes, but I hope you all have a great Friday afternoon. Oh, I do see that some of you are having some issues with the link. Send me an email and I will try to help you through that. I'll put my email in the chat as well. Alrighty, guys, well, have a wonderful Friday, and we will see you next month for February's training. Thank you all. Have a great day.